In one of my previous chats, I discussed how you can define your delivery model, your business model for providing professional services based around your ideal customer, right? So I'm going to tell a story about a customer engagement that I'm about to start tomorrow, actually, where I was approached by this company to help them come up with a business operating system. This was like intriguing to me that the customer was like looking at their systems as not meeting their business needs because they were not all connected and they weren't really defined or designed. They just kind of evolved over time. I mean, with good thought. But, as the business has changed and grown, the processes are disjointed. So they wanted to kind of get a business operating system. I mean, this is like the ideal customer, right? They want a process oriented technology, which is, it's people, process, technology. It's always those three things, right? If you don't have the right people, doing the right process, the technology is just a tool, right? But the tool can help improve the process. So it's all interrelated. And I'm thinking, wow, this is an ideal customer. And so we kind of went around learning a little bit about their business. I always say that you should have at least 3 calls where you're listening to understand before you start selling, right? Because it's not about you, it's about the customer. So we did that, and we came up with a plan where we were going to come in, do an assessment, starting with, the core system is good. They've got a good ERP system, but it's not in the cloud and it's not up to date, right? And even though this system is available in the cloud, it is available on subscription, it is available with a browser-based client, but that's not what they have. They have an older version of it. So we were going to look at it, right? And not with no preconceived ideas. I might be a cloud evangelist, but I don't think the cloud is necessarily better for everybody, even though in this case, my mind is already thinking that they could get some advantages based upon all the integrations they really could use based upon the initial discovery that we performed at no charge, because it's important to listen and understand first before you sell. So we come up with this proposal, and it's well received. And then, lo and behold, right before we start, the chief information officer is no longer with the firm. It turns out that he'd been trying to do this for 5 years on his own and had very little success in actually doing it. So he spent a lot of money, and he was let go right before he hired us. But, they were intrigued by our proposal. So we continued the conversation with the CFO and the next guy up in the IT and the CEO. So now I'm dealing with the power, right? Even though I was dealing with the foreign owned, it's a U.S. distributor of a foreign manufacturer, one of my niche ideal customers, right? This is who I've dealt with for years. So now I'm dealing with the local power, and they start asking me all these questions, and they want to trim down the scope. Okay, right? They've spent a lot of money. They've had few results. They don't want to start with such a big project. Fine, I understand that. Don't eat the elephant in one bite, right? And so we trim it down, and they've gotten competing proposals, and they still like us, right? Because we still have this vision of where they want to go that kind of meshes with theirs. They just don't want to bite off too much at one time. So then the CEO starts to negotiate, right? And that's one of the things that I really don't do, right? I don't believe that I should be negotiating my value, right? If I can provide this value, what are you asking for? Are you asking for me to do less? If you want me to do less, that's what I did. I cut down the scope, and now it's down to this, right? But how do I negotiate my value? Are you saying that I'm not worth what I say that I'm worth? And sometimes I can come across as a little bit of arrogant because this is what I truly, truly believe. So anyway, we end the discussion at a place where he says to me, no, we still want to go with you, but I just want you to know that you were the most expensive. And that's why I was trying to reduce your cost to be more in line with your competitors. And I said to him, I don't think you understand that what we're offering is not like what our competitors are offering, because I know who the competitors are, and they primarily bill based upon the hour. And they're leaving a provider who billed based upon the hour who was not responsive to them. So, if you want to go from somebody who's type A to another person who is type A, then you should expect similar results, maybe a little bit better at first because you're a new customer and they're thinking that they're going to, get more work from you. Or you could go with somebody like iBusiness Network where this is the price, right? And if you call me after, we finish this initial engagement and ask me a question, there's no charge because we're looking at that as more discovery for potentially the next engagement, which will again be a fixed fee, right? Based upon a scope of work, right? Which is a reasonable value for the service being provided. And so then he asked, will you always be the most expensive? And it was a good question. This is one of the reasons why I consider them my ideal customer, because they ask really good questions. And curiosity is one of the things that I look for in a customer, because curiosity leads to creativity. And I told him no, because right now you are in the phase of work where you need high level thinking, right? You are asking for me to help architect a solution. And it just so happens that in architecting the solution right now, you're asking me to do an evaluation of your system to say if it's capable of being upgraded to a current, more modern version of the software, which is not necessarily the best use of my time. In advance of going there, knowing that because their system is so old that you can't go from their version to the current version, that there's got to be an interim step. Yesterday, I got a laptop out. I loaded it with the interim version, and I'm going to bring it with me so I can test. Was that a good use of my time? Absolutely not. It took me way too long because it's not something I do every day, right? I could have had a junior consultant who is more technical in nature do it for less money if I was billing by the hour. But it just so happens that because we have a lot of equipment sitting around waiting for things like this because we've downsized, and because I have the capability of doing it and I had the time because I am the master of my own time, I just did it. I'm not charging any more for it. It wasn't part of the scope of services to say that I was going to bring a laptop preloaded with the software that they need as their interim version. I did it because it's going to make me more efficient and more effective in my job, and that my time was my choice to do this so I could delight my customer. It's a different mindset. And hopefully the client will appreciate it, or they won't be my ideal client anymore. So the purpose of this story is to say, depending upon your business model and depending upon how you work, right? If I was in the last rendition or iteration of iBusiness Network, where I had a staff of people downstairs in my bullpen, so to speak, I could have handed off that task to somebody, right? I would have also had all that overhead. And it would have been reflected in my hourly rates, which I would have been billing him. Or I could be in my current rendition and I could choose to do this, and the cost doesn't change for the customer because the value may or may not have changed. It's a choice. We all have choices. And right now, I've chosen to provide a different business model where sometimes I am the most expensive and sometimes I'm not. But I hate to use the word guarantee, but I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to provide a good value for the fixed fee that I am charging on this and pretty much every engagement that we have done since we have changed our business model to this new one. So this story is about creating curiosity and creativity and thought for service providers to think how they can reimagine their services, or for customers to think, what is the type of service provider I need right now based upon where I am in my journey, right? This customer was at the beginning of their journey and they need an architect. They need senior people. If, let's say, they've gone through a digital transformation, they're in the cloud, they've optimized based upon their initial needs, they are, in a continuous improvement mode, they might want a cloud engagement executive from a larger firm with an army of consultants behind him to meet with them on a quarterly basis, review their needs, and then, pull on resources as they need it and provide that at either a fixed fee or a hourly basis. Completely different circumstance. And, my job in my discovery is to kind of identify that and to match them with the right people. Because as I told this client, I'm not always going to be providing the service. There are lots of services that there are people way better than me and firms way better than us to do. And it's my job as his advocate to match him with that firm at that time. Pretty simple. If you just do the right thing and keep the customer at the center of the thought process, you create a win-win relationship. And that's how you become the trusted advisor. I hate those words because it's been so overused over the years. But that's what we want to be, right? We all want to be the trusted advisor for our clients. But the first thing you have to do is build trust. And we do that by providing value. Hope I've added some thought to your day. And then you can go off and enjoy it now. Have a good one.